Donald Trump finally breaks his silence on abortion. Plus, Riley Gaines slams a top women's basketball coach for her remarks on transgender players. This is Can't Cancel Rob Smith. All right, what's going on, Problematics? A lot to get into. Okay, so Donald Trump has finally made his thoughts on abortion known leading up into the 2024 election. Let's check out what he had to say. And honestly, what he has to say has gotten a lot of people on both sides of the abortion debate pretty upset. Check this out.
The Republican Party will always support the creation of strong, thriving, and healthy American families. We want to make it easier for mothers and families to have babies, not harder. That includes supporting the availability of fertility treatments like IVF in every state in America. Like the overwhelming majority of Americans, including the vast majority of Republicans, conservatives, Christians, and pro-life Americans, I strongly support the availability of IVF for couples who are trying to have a precious baby. What could be more beautiful or better than that? Today, I'm pleased that the Alabama legislature has acted very quickly and passed legislation that preserves the availability of IVF in Alabama. They really did a great and fast job. The Republican Party should always be on the side of the miracle of life and the side of mothers, father, their beautiful babies, and that's what we are. IVF is an important part of that, and our great Republican Party will always be with you in your quest for the ultimate joy in life. Many people have asked me what my position is on abortion and abortion rights, especially since I was proudly the person responsible for the ending of something that all legal scholars, both sides, wanted and, in fact, demanded be ended. Roe v. Wade. They wanted it ended. It must be remembered that the Democrats are the radical ones on this position because they support abortion up to and even beyond the 9th month. The concept of having an abortion in the later months and even execution after birth, and that's exactly what it is. The baby is born, the baby is executed after birth, is unacceptable, and almost everyone agrees with that. My view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint, the states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case, the law of the state. Many states will be different. Many will have a different number of weeks, or some will have more conservative than.
Well, look, it sounds pretty reasonable to you, correct? It sounds pretty reasonable to me as well. And before I get into this abortion conversation, I think that sometimes what a lot of people miss with these conversations on both right and left is that poll after poll after poll that was taken literally over the past couple of decades proves that the majority of Americans are in favor of abortion up to and including the first 15 weeks. So it's like the first trimester, right? This has been polled over and over and over again. So that is where the vast majority of the American public stands on abortion, no matter what your personal feelings on it are. That is where the vast majority of the public stands. So here's the thing about what's going on with the fringes on the right and the left. There are people that are to the right of most Americans that think that there should never be abortion in any case, even in cases of incest or rape, right? There are people that absolutely believe this, and they want to die on that hill. And then there are the people on the left who absolutely do believe in and agree with abortion up to and including 9 months. Now, remember, when the former governor of Virginia, Ralph Northam, was basically ran out of that office, it was because he made remarks on a local radio interview that went totally viral, in which he said basically, when it comes to abortions at the 9-month mark and possibly even beyond that, he said that we will have a conversation with the mother, we'll make the baby comfortable, and then we will figure out what happens after that. These are this man's own words. Like, that is what he says, right? And so when you have a bunch of people on the left, liberals, Democrats, whatever you want to call it, that are never really forced to give what their true issue on abortion is. Now, note this, and you can Google it. You can Google the politicians, the activists, whatever. They always say that they believe in a woman's right to choose, and it's full stop. And nobody ever really pushes them beyond that. And the reason that they're able to get away with how extreme they've become on that issue is because nobody pushes them on that. We do not have a mainstream media that demands the same answers of these people as they do of whatever random Republican is put right in front of them. So that's the first thing. And so now Trump with these remarks are honestly very centrist, very stable, very much in line with what most independents in this country believe about this issue, right? So that's where we are. But he has managed to piss off, to make angry a lot of these activists on the far right. And let me talk about what I define as far right. If your position on anything is to the right of what the vast majority of Americans believe, and these are issues that have already been decided in the court of public opinion, if you fall to the left or to the right of where the vast majority of Americans are, you very much are far right. So I feel very comfortable in saying that generally the people that absolutely hate abortion and abhor it and are doing everything in their power to stop it, they don't believe in abortion in any case, in any circumstance, they're very much on the far right. And so Trump has made a lot of those people very angry with these remarks. I don't believe that the pro-life movement is very politically relevant, and I will tell you why. Because they have nowhere to go. They know they have nowhere to go. Trump knows they have nowhere to go. The Republican Party knows that they have nowhere to go. All right? They know that this issue, and by the way, Roe versus Wade being overturned by the United States Supreme Court is what they have been fighting for the past 30 or 40 years. Now, I've always thought there's no constitutional right to an abortion. I am not entirely sure why that was up to the Supreme Court to decide either way. I understand that. And by the way, I also understand people's arguments that there's no constitutional right to a gay marriage. So why was that argument put up to the Supreme Court as well? I literally, I understand that argument. I disagree with it, but I understand the argument from a constitutional and legal perspective. So when Roe v. Wade was overturned, what it did was it left it up to the states. In Trump's remarks, he said that any state in which the vast majority of people, want abortions in the way that they're provided now, the citizens will vote on this, and that is where it is. All right. And so that has basically made everybody mad. It made the far right sort of very pro-life evangelicals mad. And it also made the liberals mad. But honestly, anything that is to the right of abortions up to and including 9 months is going to make that fringe on the left side of the aisle upset. What is going on here with a lot of these, very far right pro-life activists is that they don't know how to win. So they won with Roe v. Wade. They won. And so now there's so much money involved. There's so much institutions involved. This is their culture war battle that will literally rage until the end of time. They don't know how to win. So now they're going to be fighting for this. And that's great. They will fight for that on the activist level. Maybe there'll be some more stuff that happens in the states. But as far as I'm concerned, it's already been decided on a federal level. The Supreme Court struck it down. It went back to the states. So there's going to be people that have their opinions on this, and there's going to be battles that happen on the state level. But the issue has been decided, I believe, on a national level, and that is what Trump is getting at here. So I honestly think that he did a very good job, going straight to the center on this one. And you're generally above the target when you're pissing everybody off. And that's what he did here. All right, a guest on the Joe Rogan podcast just doesn't really think that the illegal immigration situation in New York City is all that bad. This is what he had to say.
Yeah, I think the perception of New York is a little weird.
How come that guy didn't go any further in politics?
No charisma.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, New Yorkers, we don't care about charisma with the mayors, really. We don't even know who our politicians are. I just found out we have a female governor. I had no fucking clue who the governor is.
That lady's out to lunch.
I have no clue. But New Yorkers, we don't care. It's the mayor of New York City is the governor of the state. In our minds.
Right. That's the leader.
We just don't, you're saying what's going on here, and that's all that matters.
Right.
We're very, that's the only thing we really think about as a city.
Yeah. What is it like there now with the immigrants?
So here's the thing. New York is so diverse, you can't tell immigrants are there. Does that make sense?
Right.
If there's other cities that are really homogenous, they're all white, and then all of a sudden a bunch of not white people come, you're like, oh my God, we got immigrants everywhere. But for a New Yorker to be like, hey, I think we got some immigrants here, it's impossible.
Right.
Everybody's an immigrant. Everybody's brown, everybody's black, everybody's Asian. There's all these different ones.
Right.
The tricky thing with, you're talking about the migrant crisis, is that they're taking advantage of New York is like the biggest state in the country. It's like, I think maybe the only big city that has a right to shelter.
Right.
It's the only one of this size that has a right to shelter.
And it used to be for homeless people.
It's only for homeless people.
Yeah.
They're taking advantage of a system that's built for homeless people, which is pretty fucking good if you ask me. When you have the financial hub of the world, you want people sleeping on the streets. You go, no, let's put some money so they can go inside. Like this is, and homeless people are supposed to like basically enter in and out of homelessness. The idea is give them some shelter. Maybe they can get back out on their feet.
Right.
The migrants hear about this and they're like, what, free housing?
All right, look, I don't know who this guy is. Like, apparently there's a comedian named Andrew Schulz. This dude, like, I am very curious as to how long he has been living in New York City. Now, look, I have been living in New York City in some capacity literally since 2008, all right? And everybody in New York City notices the illegal immigrant crisis that's going on in the city. And let me just break it down for you. First of all, you know, this argument, and like I said, I don't necessarily know what political leanings that this guy has. He's a comedian. I'm assuming that he's kind of like a limousine liberal. I'm assuming that he's probably trying to, you know, skirt the line a little bit because, you know, these people at a certain level of success, they have handlers and they don't want to be seen as far right, whatever. He doesn't strike me as somebody that is a New Yorker that has spent any extended period of time there. And if he does, he probably doesn't get out of one or two neighborhoods. And let me tell you why. First of all, New York, yes, has been very diverse, but he talks about the diversity of New York like somebody that is like a tourist, like, oh, look, you know, the guy at my bodega is Latino. And then there's these African immigrants that are selling these really great shawls down there. Like, that ain't it, first of all. The difference with the illegal immigrant situation that's going on right now in New York City and the immigrants that have always been in New York City is that it is immediately noticeable in different neighborhoods in the city that some of these illegal immigrants have came in so much and that they are different from the illegal immigrants that have always been in New York City. I have seen, and I think I did something on this my last episode, these open air fruit markets in the city where you've got people selling fruit in the open air in New York City. That is, by the way, disgusting because there's bus smoke, there's cigarette smoke, there's like, it's really, really gross. And that's something that you did not see 5, 7, 8 years ago in New York City. You see a lot of these people concentrated in certain neighborhoods like Midtown West and the Upper West Side. Why are they concentrated there? Because my taxpayer dollars and the taxpayer dollars of others are going to fund these people's stays in hotels where they get room service, they get all of this other stuff. And then, by the way, we're spending tens of millions of dollars in New York City on preloaded debit cards so that they can have a little spending money, you know, walking around the city with. Maybe they'll go catch a show. You know, maybe they'll go catch The Wiz on Broadway. I hear it's good. And so there's all of that going on, which, by the way, was never happening before. You've got kids selling, like people selling churros on the subway. You got like kids and also grown adult men and women, by the way, like selling candy that they probably use some of that taxpayer money to get. And then they're getting that money under the table. So there's all this stuff that is there as a result of this illegal immigration issue that smart governors like DeSantis and Abbott made a problem for the so-called sanctuary cities across this country, right? I don't begrudge Abbott and DeSantis for what they did. They're playing politics, but they're playing damn good politics because they made a border state issue a national issue. You've got Eric Adams begging for assistance from the Biden administration. You've got all of this stuff going on. So it is a lie. And this dude strikes me as somebody that's not been in New York for a really long time and not somebody that's really in tune to New York because you see it everywhere. And I had to tell you something problematic. It's like, I live a good life, you know, in New York, right? Like, I make a certain amount of coins. I live in a certain neighborhood. I live a certain lifestyle, whatever. Doesn't even matter because I can still see it. And what's going on in New York City that's populated with a lot of these limousine liberals is that the limousine liberals of the world will see these issues going on, but they think that if they actually stand up or comment about these issues, or if they have the wrong opinion about these issues, that they're somehow doing the bidding of Republicans or people on the right by actually saying so. And so there's a lot of that going on there. So I literally, like, I could not disagree more with the fact that most New Yorkers don't notice this. It's dead wrong. Everybody notices it. And I got to tell you, moving into the warmer months, moving into the summer season in certain neighborhoods, you're going to see it more and more and more. There's going to be more of the fighting from these folks, which, by the way, if you're on social media, you saw that riot that broke out in Midtown a couple of weeks ago. There's going to be more people selling nasty fruit in outdoor markets. There's going to be more people selling churros on the subway. New York City feels very third world right now in a way that it has never felt in the time that I've been living there or spending some time there. And that is specifically because of the illegal immigrant situation. So miss me with the idea that, oh, most people don't realize it because this is just like the diversity that New York City has always had. BS. Total garbage. All right, Riley Gaines is blasting NCAA coach Don Stanley for her remarks that were welcoming to potential transgender players in women's college basketball. I want you to check out this segment that Riley did on Fox News about the remarks.
Has won its third national championship.
South Carolina beating Caitlin Clark in Iowa last night, but not before its head coach made these controversial remarks the day before.
If you're a woman, you should play. If you consider yourself a woman and you want to play sports or vice versa, you should be able to play.
Do you think transgender women should be able to participate?
That's the question you want me to ask. I mean, you want to ask, so I'll give you that yes.
That's Dawn Staley. Really stunning. Our next guest lost an NCAA championship to a trans athlete, as you know. Former swimmer, Division I swimmer, Outkick contributor Riley Gaines joins us now. Riley, Dawn Staley, the point guard. Do you think that she'd want to play against men? Does she really believe what she's saying? It's okay for a transgender athlete to play against her women?
Of course, I don't think she believes this. And look, I love and respect Dawn Staley. 2 championships in 3 years. In 3 years at South Carolina, she's won 2 championships. I think her record is 109-3. That's unprecedented. So clearly she's great at what she does, and she's developed many incredible athletes whom I admire. But she's either proven herself, to your point, to be entirely incompetent or a sellout. And personally, I don't think she believes what she said. If you watch the video, her silence, the hesitation, and that drink of water, I think it spoke volumes. I think she knew she had to be politically correct, and I know about as good as anyone that pressure exists, and it's real. But the bottom line is she knows perfectly well that men's basketball, it's a totally different sport than women's basketball. That's obvious by the speed of the game, the size of the ball, the sheer amount of layups in women's basketball compared to dunks when a player gets a fast break in men's basketball, the distance of the three-point line, the list goes on. So what I think this boils down to is she didn't have the courage to stand with women. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for her, and she blew it. And truthfully, my guess is she's okay with it until her team defeated by one or more men playing on the opposite team.
So look, when it comes to Riley Gaines, she is the voice when it comes to this issue. You know, like they said in the intro, you know, she is somebody that dealt with a biological man who identified as a transgender woman, stealing titles and basically being weird in the locker room when she was an NCAA swimmer. She's become a very staunch voice when it comes to like just engaging in the conversation about transgender women in sports, transgender women, i.e. biological men. And it is not transphobic to say that. It is not transphobic to say that there are differences that exist between the sexes, and that perhaps males who went through male puberty that are biologically male, even if they identify as women, should not be playing against biological women in sports. There's so many examples of women being hurt, of women being injured when they are dealing with these transgender women, you know, on the same playing field. But so this has become a culture war issue, and I think that journalist absolutely had an agenda when he asked that question. The name of the game is what's going to get the story attention, what's going to get you attention, what is a part of the conversation that America is having, right? And this absolutely is. So I don't think that this journalist was being clickbaity. But here's the thing. Don Stanley knows, and I agree with Riley Gaines, like this legendary NCAA coach does not believe this for a single solitary second. I do not believe so. I do not believe that with all of her expertise, with all of her titles, with all of the championships that she has led women to win, I do not believe that she just would absolutely disregard the differences in biological men and biological women in sports. But this is the thing. And this is why there's such a courage deficit when you get to that level, because she knows that if she said one wrong thing about this entire issue, sponsorship's gone, career gone. They would drum her out of the NCAA. They would drum her out of her position. It doesn't matter what she has achieved or what she had accomplished before that. She knows that the Rainbow Mafia and all of the leftist agitators in the media would try to ruin her. So it's deeply sad that you have somebody that feels like they cannot be authentic, because when you watch that clip and you look at what she's saying and you look at how she looks when she's saying it, you know that she doesn't believe it. You know that she had been coached as to what that answer was going to be because she knew that question was coming. And so now, like I said, when this became a culture war issue, you have Jemele Hill, basically a sports writer turned Twitter leftist, under Trump. And so now she's hopping in on this. And no, by the way, it's apparently the journalist's fault. And she's piling in on the journalist. This is what she says. So the journalist's name is Dan Zakshesky. And he says, the reaction I received from media members for simply asking Dawn Staley a question has been nothing short of disappointing. They continue to prove that most quote unquote journalists aren't interested in truth, but exist solely to push their narratives. And so this is what, alleged former journalist Jemele Hill turned, again, leftist Twitter activist said. The truth is, truth in quotes, there isn't a single transgender woman competing in Division I women's basketball, meaning none were competing at the Final Four or on Dawn Staley's team, so there is zero relevancy to your question. Stop. So the point that she's making right now is that the question only becomes relevant when it has already happened, right? So when the NCAA changes their rules and when some biological man that identifies as a transgender woman enters the space and starts dominating and just crushing the biological women and being an asset to that person's team, then Jemele Hill thinks that we shouldn't start asking the question until then. Noted. She says, you wanted to troll, you wanted the clicks, and you were looking for a reason to put a target on someone else's back. That's not journalism. But then again, given who you work for, none of this is surprising. I believe that this guy works for Outkick. All right. Yes, this guy works for Outkick. And so obviously Outkick was created as a response to how far left and how super woke sports journalism has become. And the reason that I said this is a culture war issue is because we've lost the plot when it comes to common sense in this country. I don't believe that biological men and women's sports should be a culture war issue. This is a common sense issue. But people like Jemele Hill, people like all of these people, these leftist Twitter activists, they always want to be on the quote unquote right side of any subject. And so everybody has told them that to be on the right side of history, quote unquote, trademark, to be on the right side of history, trademark, is to completely embrace whatever the Rainbow Mafia tells you to embrace. Wrong move. And these people that are advocating for this, I don't believe it's going to age well. She's already like Jemele Hill keeps herself relevant. Like she's not going to be relevant again until Trump tweets about her again. So this is her way to kind of like keep herself relevant and be in the situation. But Riley's right. Everybody who's standing up against this, including Martina Navratilova, by the way, one of the greatest female athletes of all time, is right. And I think that these are people that will be judged very kindly by history. So Joe Biden wants to make community college tuition, quote unquote, free. And this is what he has to say about it.
I also want to make, and I've been pushing this, and if I'm reelected, I'm going to push it hard. We're going to get it done next time, is I want to make community college tuition free. So you won't need loans at all. We're cutting half the cost of going to college. If we do this, the economic gains will far outweigh the cost, and that's not hyperbole, that's the truth. This in addition to the historic investments we're making to modernize our infrastructure, roads, bridges, high-speed internet, clean water for every American. We need more qualified people doing this work.
Joe Biden's trying to buy more votes from the young people that were dumb enough to vote for him in 2020. Remember, like this is basically just vote buying at this point. At this point, what is the word that I'm looking for? At this point, he is basically trying to bribe people for votes. Okay, so now remember, I'm old enough to remember in 2020 when Joe Biden said that he was going to forgive all of the student loan debt. Oh, remember, Uncle Joe's going to forgive our student loan debt. He's just going to wipe away this debt clean. And by the way, anybody that believes that the student loan debt is going to be quote unquote forgiven, and that's not your tax dollars paying into forgiving quote unquote student loan debt, is too stupid to live. But by the way, these are the people that they're trying to reach. These are the votes that they're trying to buy. And he didn't even fulfill that original campaign promise to eliminate the student loan debt. And so I wanted to get into this because it is very interesting, the sort of machinations about this, because the spin that comes from the Biden administration and the left is we could not get student loan debt forgiveness done because those mean old Republicans struck it down in the Supreme Court. And I want to give you exactly what happened here. And this is from the National Conference of State Legislatures, because it actually helped me to understand the grift that the Biden administration was pushing a little bit more. Let's get into this. So this went to the Supreme Court, and what the Biden administration was trying to do was to use the Higher Education Relief Opportunities for Students Act, the HEROES Act, which basically permits the Secretary of Education to waive or modify provisions for loan forgiveness under the Higher Education Act in the event of war or other military action or a national emergency. Now, they tried to use the national emergency that was declared because of COVID to basically skirt the rules for the HEROES Act to be able to fulfill this campaign promise, or as I would like to say, campaign scam for the young people that voted for Joe Biden. I'm very cynical about that administration and their motives. I believe that they knew that this was a try and that it was going to be, pushed back on by a lot of the Republican governors in a lot of different states, which is exactly what happened. Like, these people took it to court, and this took it all the way up to the Supreme Court. It was the Biden versus Nebraska, because Nebraska is the one that got it all the way up to the Supreme Court, and it struck it down. They're basically saying that this is not constitutional. You can't skirt this rule under COVID as a national emergency to basically use federal taxpayer dollars to quote unquote forgive student loan debt. It doesn't make any sense. It's unconstitutional. Got knocked down by the Supreme Court. Of course, the conservative and conservative leaning justices were the dissenting votes, were the deciding votes. The only ones that were in favor of this were Kagan, Sotomayor, and Brown Jackson. And so, look, that's the legislative stuff about this, but I wanted you guys to understand the grift that the Biden administration is pulling on people. So now they want to say that since they didn't get this done and the evil Republicans weren't able to do this, now they want to make community college free. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I started my university career in community college, and I will never, ever, ever be ashamed of that. Community college was the right move for me after having gone to a really crappy public high school and being in the military for 5 years and sort of being out of the school mindset for 5 years. I wasn't entirely sure if I was ready to go into undergrad. So I went to community college, I killed it, and then I transferred to Syracuse University, where I did my undergrad and eventually got my graduate degree from Columbia, right? So I do believe in community college as a stepping stone. What I don't believe in is the idea that in any way, any taxpayer dollars should pay for community college, because I think this is what's going to happen. First of all, in-state tuition for a lot of community colleges, at least the one that I went to, is something like $60 to $180 a credit. That means that you can take a full course load for literally $2,000 to $3,000 a semester. All right. So that's not breaking the bank. Like, I was waiting tables after the military while I was in school, and I was able to swing this, right? Like, it wasn't, and by the way, it wasn't even the GI Bill that was paying for any of that stuff. I believe. I could be wrong. But the idea that taxpayer dollars should go to making community college free is terrible. First of all, I don't think that any taxpayer dollars should be going to pay for any sort of higher education for people, regardless. I do not believe so. Second of all, The community college system as it exists right now is already the 13th grade. Like I said, I don't look down on it, but I'm going to keep it real. A lot of the stuff that I saw in community college was very reminiscent of things that you see in underperforming high schools, where you have a bunch of people that don't really kind of want to be there, but they know that they need to be doing something. And there's just like a lot of riffraff and a lot of drama and a lot of things that are not necessarily mission focused. So you make this free. And so every Tom, Dick, and Harry that barely graduates these terrible public high schools is now going to have the United States taxpayer paying for them to waste some more time in community college. The quality of the instruction is going to get downgraded. And by the way, the government is not going to allow taxpayer dollars to make community college free without getting involved in community colleges, even more so in some capacity. I think that it's a really bad move. I think that it's going to make the education worse for everybody. And also, I think it's going to downgrade the sort of prominence or even relevance of even that associate's degree from community college. And the people that are going to lash out at me and say that I'm being classist or anything like that, that ain't it. That's not what I'm saying. Because I believe in community colleges, and I believe that you can do yourself a solid by going and getting like an associate's in business and just getting the basics out of the way and figuring out some understanding of what it is that you truly want to do without paying the ridiculous amounts of money that it costs to go undergrad nowadays. But getting the government involved in community college ain't it. And you're never going to convince me otherwise just because he failed to properly grift the young voters he was going after the first time around. All right, Problematics, thank you so much for joining. Please watch and subscribe on youtube.com/@can'tcancelrobsmith. Share, do all those things. It really helps me out with the algorithm. And also, there are audio-only versions of this podcast that come out, and you can get that on Apple Podcasts, iHeart Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.